Poised for Exit is a show for business owners who want to achieve a successful exit based on their own terms. Your business exit will likely be the biggest financial transaction of your life, and for most, you'll have one shot at doing it right. The topics and guests we feature and the stories they share will provide valuable ideas and strategies to improve operations and grow enterprise value so you can achieve the best possible exit outcome. Now here's your host, award-winning certified exit planning advisor, Julie Keys.
Welcome, everyone, to the Poised for Exit podcast show. Today's guest is a certified fundraising executive and advises business owners on strategies for giving back. Her organization was founded 85 years ago. It's been a while since we covered the topic of philanthropy, and this is going to be a good one, so stay with us.
My name is Todd Crow, and I'm the president of the Twin Cities Exit Planning Chapter. If you're a business owner and advisor and want to learn more about the world of exit planning, you're invited to visit the Twin Cities chapter of the Exit Planning Institute. You can expect top-level education delivered by subject matter experts at every monthly meeting. Grow your network and draw from the learning that could be a game changer for your business or your practice. There's no pressure to become a member, so come and see what the buzz is all about. Our meetings are held the second Wednesday of the month, 7:30 to 9 a.m. See the show notes for more information and registration links.
This is Andy Kosamba, president of Calhoun Companies. We understand that selling your business is a big deal. Since 1908, Calhoun Companies has been confidently connecting buyers and sellers. From small family shops to large corporations, our expert brokers walk with you and guide you every step of the way, whether you're looking to retire or simply for a fresh start. If you're curious what your business could sell for, or if you're ready to start the process, head to calhouncompanies.com for a free and confidential consultation. Calhoun Companies, the confident choice for buyers and sellers.
Exiting your business is a big deal, both financially and emotionally. I'm John Marquet, Certified Exit Planning Advisor with TrustPoint. We help business owners transition smoothly on their terms. Our focus is on maximizing value, minimizing stress, and giving you confidence in what's next. Whether you're selling or passing the torch, we make the process seamless. Start planning today at trustpointinc.com. That's trustpointinc.com.
Thinking about selling your business in the next few years? Don't wait to start planning. I've seen too many business owners wait too long and regret it. Freedom Financial Partners are financial advisors who specialize in exit planning for business owners, helping you reduce tax surprises, protect what you've built, and quantify how much you need from the sale. Their proven process helps you think beyond your business so you can move forward with clarity and confidence. The longer you wait, the fewer options you may have. Download your free financial readiness assessment today at ffpforme.com/exit. That's ffpforme.com/exit. Hello, Poised for Exit listeners. We are here today with Jennifer Vickerman, who is a gift planner with the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation. Jen, welcome to Poised for Exit.
Thanks, Julie. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you could be. I'm excited. We have an event coming up that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. But first, this is an intriguing topic and one we, like I said in the opener, we haven't covered in a long time. And so I'm interested in finding out, how did you get here? How did you get your start in this work?
It's a fun question and not a linear path.
Usually not, right?
No, definitely not. So liberal arts education background, and came to the work of philanthropy and fundraising out of the financial services industry. I was with Thrivent Financial here in the Twin Cities for almost a decade. Started out with them as a financial advisor. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and so that work then took me into new business development at Thrivent's corporate office. And during that time, I was a very active volunteer fundraiser with an organization here in the Twin Cities, and discovered I really loved that work and decided to make a shift. And I've been in the work of fundraising and philanthropy for a little over 10 years now.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, what a great background, though, right? To be with an organization like Thrivent and then transition yourself into working for a nonprofit. So tell us about, like I said in the show opener, 85 years this organization's been around. And so share with our listeners maybe a little bit of the history of the foundation. I think that's a good story.
Oh, I'd be happy to. So The St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation officially launched in 1940. It was formed by a number of business leaders in St. Paul at the time. And the very first gift that was received by the foundation in 1945 was from a woman named Annie Paper. And Annie was an Orthodox Jew here in St. Paul. And the first grants that went out from her $5,000 gift were to support learning materials for immigrants who were learning English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fantastic.
So just
Yeah.
a wonderful story. And, as we're wrapping up Women's History Month, it's one that I just love that,
Yeah.
all of these business leaders who were all men who formed the foundation.
Yeah.
And the first gift was actually from Annie. And we still have a fund from Annie today that makes grants every year out into the community 85 years later.
Wow. That's fantastic. So obviously her family, right? Her heirs and whatever generation that might be at this point, maybe the third one, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. And so when we talk about philanthropy and we talk about exit planning, right? Putting those two together because business owners are going to have a liquidity event and we hope that they have some time, right? Some planning time. And so I kind of like to talk about that because I know there's so many, different angles and various topics within philanthropy that we could cover. But for the purpose of the listeners of this show, let's talk about transition planning and exit planning. And maybe from that lens, you could share with our listeners, what are some of the primary benefits? I mean, we know obviously tax deduction, but let's talk about some other primary benefits that especially working with St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation for our business owners.
Yeah, absolutely, Julie. So I think to help ground us a little bit in this conversation, one of the things I'll share is Fidelity Charitable did this really great study on entrepreneurs and business owners back in 2018. And what they found is that entrepreneurs are the most generous segment of American society.
Yes, they are.
And so knowing that they tend to give up to 50% more to charitable organizations than non-entrepreneurs, and they nearly twice as many of them consider that giving to be a really high priority.
Yes.
So as we think about this and kind of the process that we look at and the things that we think about, it's first and foremost helping these business owners experience the joy of giving.
Yes.
And the benefit of that joy that can be experienced by many of these folks have owned these businesses for decades, right? And they're getting to that point of exiting and maybe passing it to a family or selling it altogether. And this has been their life's work.
Yes.
And so to have a component of that to support the nonprofit organizations they care about, to support their communities, to me, that's the ultimate benefit to them, right? Is to have that experience of joy.
Well, and when we talk about next act planning, like what's life after business look like? In other words, the impact that they want to leave, right, and legacy that they look to leave is many times kind of murky. Like they know that they want to do something because it's in their heart to do it, but they're not exactly sure, what or how to structure all of that. And so when I talk about the process of exit planning, that is part of that process. And it's something that has to be discussed earlier, right? Because there's usually other stakeholders that are part of that decision making. But so many times it happens where they're making this philanthropy decision at the last minute. And then they have less control and they're making maybe less impact and maybe not feeling quite as fulfilled, huh?
Yeah, I think that's true. And, often when I'm working with professional advisors out in the community and we're talking about the different ways that we can walk alongside them and their clients in these types of processes, My message to them is a very simple one. Talk about philanthropy early and often, especially as it relates to business owners, and especially for those that you already know are philanthropic,
Mm-hmm.
because it does make a difference. I mean, like you said, there are still ways to make those kinds of gifts farther down the road, but it limits your options.
Sure. And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be all at once. It could be something that they do and employ over time with several different strategies. So maybe we could talk about that. Maybe some different strategies that seem to be, more common or
Mhm.
more popular with business owners.
Absolutely. So probably the most popular option that we see is when business owners that are able to donate some of the privately held stock, especially with an S corp, if it's set up that way.
Hmm.
They'll put that into a donor advised fund, and
Sure.
then that allows them to spread out their giving over the rest of their lifetime and to have the greatest amount of flexibility in making those gifts. So if someone is supporting, let's say they have 3 organizations that they're really passionate about, but those organizations are rather small in size, if this is a really large liquidity event, if they made a one-time gift to a really small nonprofit, that might not be the best scenario for that nonprofit, if they have a small budget. But
Hmm.
instead, with the donor advised fund, they're able to spread out that gift that they maybe would have made in one fell swoop over a number of years. And
Hmm.
that also often will lead to, now that this business owner has some time freed up, they might get more involved as a volunteer if that organization
Yeah.
can utilize their expertise. They might serve on a committee or a board, and that just deepens the engagement, which can
Mm.
often lead to more giving.
Right. Right. Yeah. Wow. Love that. And when we talk about that next act, and I meet with, lots of business owners, right? I've worked with a lot of owners over the years. And that is where we kind of get tripped up sometimes, like, what am I going to do next? Because relevancy is such an important thing for everyone, right?
Mhm.
So, like a typical situation for an owner who recently, this is a real story, won't name anyone, but recently sold the company, and he realized not too long after, a couple months after, that his relationships really changed,
Mm.
and he needed a plan, but he didn't have one. And his plan of, and this was not my client, this was a story that I was told by the person that actually lived through it. But he said, yeah, he goes, I did as much golfing and I did as much coffee shop and babysitting of my grandkids as I could. And he said, I realized even after just a couple, 3 months, that I needed more meaning in my life. And I realized that I should have had a better plan for, what's next. And, then we had this conversation. I said, so what did you do that you felt, could be more fulfilling? And so he added volunteering to his schedule, and he also added mentoring. And so, to your point about, owners getting involved in a donor advised fund. So it isn't just about that donation, that tax strategy, right? And feeling good about that and being a giver, but also using all of the talent and skill and expertise and knowledge that you've acquired over all those years to benefit somebody else. And it kind of keeps you in the game because you have a whole new community now, right?
That's right. And I think about it, a person that I spoke with recently, business owner, longtime business owner, and very interested in going to nonprofit leaders and asking them this really unique question. What is something that you have been wanting to accomplish with your organization that never hits the budget that we
Mm,
can talk about? And he's funded a number of different programs or projects for
mm,
nonprofit organizations across the state of Minnesota in communities where he has roots. And very creative things that have been able to be put into place for these organizations that are helping them with their mission long term, but they were something that just never quite made it onto the budget and could never be funded with dollars, time, talent. And he loves having the time to do that and the resources to be able to do it from selling a business 20 years ago.
Sure. Wow, 20 years ago, and he's still at it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, you guys must have made that an easy process. So that would be my next question. Like, say, for instance, I'm going to be, in the next couple of years, I'm going to transition out. I know I'm going to have a liquidity event. I
Mhm.
have a good financial plan. I know that I'm going to, have a decent outcome when I do sell the business. And I would like to incorporate philanthropy, and I probably should plan it out now. And
Mhm.
so, what's my process like for getting this conversation started? Like, do I call you, or how does it work?
Yeah. What I often say to advisors and to business owners is who's your board of directors? Not specifically for the business, but for you during this process. Who are your trusted advisors? And
Right.
someone from the community foundation can be your philanthropic advisor that sits kind of on that panel for you, right?
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
we're the ones that can walk alongside you, can talk with you about all of the different strategy options, all of the different tools that you might have available to use. So tools equaling assets. And then what's the technique? Do you want a donor advised fund? Are you needing some income from this?
Hmm.
For the long term, maybe we need to be looking at a charitable remainder trust that you put money in, there's tax benefit to that on the front end. And then at the end of the terms of that trust, a very large chunk is going to go to the nonprofit organization or organizations that you care about. Maybe it's a combination of things. And we're also able to work with you on who do we want to support?
Right.
A lot of people know broad categories of causes that they're interested in.
Sure.
What I find, especially with business owners and entrepreneurs, Julie, is that they are, like the example I gave, they're looking to do something innovative, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so they're interested in maybe the emerging nonprofits that might be tackling a societal issue in a little bit of a different way. And they need someone to walk alongside them and share some financial resources, but also share some of that business knowledge and talent, right?
Hmm.
So our folks on our team are able to work with business owners and their advisors to get them connected to that information so they don't have to do that all on their own. Because the wonderful thing about Minnesota in particular, I know you have some national listeners as well, but we're a really deeply rooted, philanthropically active state in the United States. So we
Hmm.
have thousands of nonprofit organizations, and that's our job, is to make sure that we've done research and we're able to provide community members with a lens into what's going on with all of those organizations.
Hmm. And to your point earlier about the trusted advisor and having that good team, and then your, organization being having a seat at the table, right? Huge, huge. And then, for the listeners out there who are advisors, lots of different advisors from different disciplines all over the country. They don't really have to have all the answers in this either, right? They can just collaborate with you. And so let's talk about, what does that look like? If I'm an advisor and I work with business owners, I'm probably, like, say, for instance, I'm in the wealth management space or financial planning space, or I'm an estate planner. Um, I can work alongside a company like yours, and your organization can help with the heavy lifting, in other words, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. And
Mhm.
we have a process for this that we use with every single, you know, scenario that's going to come up. So the things that we're really looking at are, we're making sure that we're doing all the due diligence on, is this a gift that we can accept? And one of the biggest questions with that is marketability. So if we're in a scenario where we're thinking about accepting a gift of the privately held stock, is there a market for it that hasn't already been prearranged, which is a really important piece of this, going back to our talk about it early, talk about it often. Because the IRS gets really fussy if they sniff anything that smells like a prearranged sale as it relates to charitable giving.
Got it.
So that's an important thing to know. We also take care of documenting and drafting any agreements that have to happen between the business owner and the foundation. And all of that is part of our service. So that's not an additional legal fee or anything that they're needing to be concerned with. The other part that I think is important is that there is usually a qualified appraisal that needs to happen during this process. You know, we need to understand the value of what it is we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And then usually it's, we look at then the transfer of the stock, which sometimes the wealth advisor may somehow be involved in that, sometimes not. And then our goal at the foundation, once we receive a gift of a non-cash asset like this, is we're going to work to sell it as quickly as possible for the highest price that we can get. So we typically are not in the business of holding privately held stock in our portfolio, because we're here to help that client, that business owner, be able to experience that joy of their philanthropy as quickly as possible.
So is that the stock donation, is that most commonly, is that like, if they're going to do it before, like if they're going to plan this out, and I would think that would be a very common method for giving, right?
Yes, that is common. And then also, if there is commercial real estate involved that's being sold and considered, that would be another option for us to talk about, or any other tangible business assets. We also work in things like intellectual property. So I can give a quick example of that, where one of my colleagues is currently working with someone who is an author and has 3 or 4 published books, one of which has been wildly successful, and has 2 co-authors on that book. And so working through that scenario of how could that look in that person's planning to gift their portion of those royalties and the ownership of the intellectual property of the writing to the foundation.
Fantastic. I love all the options. You know, I think, I don't know, for me anyway, when I think donation or, philanthropic initiatives, I'm always thinking like liquid assets, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And there are different ways. Obviously there are, but it's like the first thing that comes to mind. Now, before we run out of time, I want to make sure that we can share with our listeners that we have an event coming up, a co-event that we're going to be co-presenting for, right?
We
do.
So,
you want to share with our audience what that's going to be all about?
Oh, I would be happy to. So here at the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation, we have something called the Minnesota Charitable Advisors Network, where we offer educational opportunities and networking opportunities for professional advisors in the state of Minnesota. And we're partnering with Julie to present a webinar on April 30th called Advising at the Intersection of Business Exit, Legacy Building, and Community Impact. To speak to what we were just talking about, the largest share of wealth in the US is actually held in non-cash assets, and that includes a large chunk of privately held business interests, which is Julie's specialty. So we're going to have a really wonderful hour of information sharing and some time for questions from the people that join us. We will have a link in the show notes, so you'll be able to register for that free webinar, and we would absolutely be delighted if you join us for that.
Yeah, that would be great. Awesome. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I'm glad that I remembered to bring it up too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We do have a lot of people that listen to the show that I think could really benefit from hearing a little bit more than what we talked about today, right? We're going to take a little deeper dive, talk a little bit
Yes.
more about the benefits and, tactics and things that sometimes are overlooked, and how and even how advisors can actually take advantage of this opportunity, right, to expand their own client conversations, and be that relationship, that trusted advisor. So perfect. Well, Jen, so nice to have you on the show. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here with us.
Julie, it was my honor. I'm happy to come back anytime.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do that. And thank you to our listeners as well. Please do share this episode with your colleagues and friends and join us again next time.